The Senate will now come to order. The Pledge of Allegiance will now be led by Chief of Staff Tax, followed by a moment of silence and reflection.
If willing and able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. You may be seated.
The clerk will now call the roll. Please correct the pronunciation of your name if it is incorrect, and please state proxy if you are proxying for an individual.
Baber. Barnes. Barr. Bean. Bracy. Brash. Byer. Calder. Cost. Creed. Durham. Felix. Galavati. Goldstein. Gruner. Haber. Hamilton. Harvey. Hensley. Hurd. Howe. John. Kay. Kwame. LaPinta. Lapsley. Lynn. Malachi. Miller. Montalto. Morgan. Peterson. Rangavajula. Ravi. Sane. Sellers. Spittler. Tanner. Vaught. Wall. Wenzel. Whitehead.
With a quorum being present, is there a motion to approve the Journal of February 21st, 2024 as found online? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now in line for general orders of the Senate, beginning with reports from Senate leadership. Is there anyone willing to give a report on the Rules Committee? Chairwoman Ravi, you are recognized.
Hey guys, I'm up here speaking on behalf of Ava today. So rules, we reviewed 11 pieces of legislation on Sunday. 10 of them will be seen on the floor today. The one that isn't is because it's already an initiative that's being worked on by FROCO, so we decided not to bring that to the floor. And I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now hear a report from the Academics Committee. Chairwoman Creed, you are recognized.
So academics met Monday at 6 as usual. So this week, Senator Sellers and Bean met with the Transfer Student Advisory Council, and they discussed the needs of transfer students going forward. And with that, they have a piece of legislation hitting the floor tonight that talks about adding a scholarship that would be for students coming in to try to get more people to transfer here. But other than that, we discussed things we would like to see moving forward with the next term. With that, I yield to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now hear a report from the Finance Committee. Chairwoman Durham, you are recognized.
Great. Hi, everyone. The Finance Committee did not meet last week, but we will start to meet again following spring break. The specific date that we'll start meeting again is March 15th at 3:30 p.m. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now hear a report from the Health and Safety Committee. Chairwoman Ravi, you are once again recognized.
Like I've said before, love the recognition. Busy week for health and safety. We did our period packing party with no periods left behind last Friday. We've packed over 3 giant cardboard boxes worth of period products that will be sent to rural, middle, and high schools in South Carolina so that they can utilize those products. The rest of the products, which we packed about 5-ish baskets, are going to be placed in each floor of the Thomas Cooper Library. In addition to that, you guys are going to see a piece of legislation on the first reading calendar from our committee today. This piece of legislation is by Senator John and Senator Gruner, and it's regarding immunization information and making it more apparent, especially for new students, because it's important to have that on the new student checklist, or else you're not going to be able to register for classes if you have a hold. Furthermore, Senator Gruner's Carolina card legislation will be on the second reading calendar today, so y'all are going to see that. We're also going to be meeting after spring break, just like every committee is, and in our, what I believe is our final meeting, I'm going to be making all of my senators write potential action plans for their next term in Senate. We're going to talk about the transition process as well as interviews for things such as chair positions. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now hear a report from the Inclusion and Equity Committee. Vice Chairman Gruner, you are recognized, sir.
Hey guys, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion met earlier today at 4:30 p.m. We got a lot of great ideas moving forward. One of the main ones that we're going to be focusing on in commemoration of Women's Month, which will be starting in this March, we're going to try doing a women's history tabling event where we do everything from affirmations to talking about facts about women, specifically geared towards women of minority, focusing on women in STEM, politics, and other influential roles. And hopefully we'll be able to incorporate a lot of free treats and maybe even some Gamecock swag in that. And we're even going to try doing a sort of a different idea where you can write a letter to like an influential female role, such as a professor, advisors, counselors, or other Carolina staff. Moving forward, though, kind of into the next term, we're going to try and do more tabling events at both Hip Hop Wednesdays and even outside of that in order to get a better consensus for what students believe is an issue and how we can make the university more diverse and inclusive. And an idea that also got tossed around today was the idea of doing a cultural food event sometime in the fall where we bring together a bunch of separate organizations with their culinary skills and abilities to bring those forward and hopefully create more interest regarding those cultures. And with that, I yield the questions.
The Vice Chairman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the Vice Chairman? Seeing none, thank you so much, sir. We will now hear a report from the Judiciary Committee. Senator Kaye, you are recognized.
Afternoon, everybody. I am not Senator Hamilton. She was unfortunately ill and could not make it to session today, so I'm just here as a stand-in. Judiciary met last Friday and just looked over one piece, SBL 67, and was found unanimously favorable. It's the enforcement of Senate's it's one, I'll remember it later.
Point of information, it's the enforcement and notification of the attendance policy.
It is a long title, but it was found unanimously favorable by the committee. Yield for questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now hear a report from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Chairman Harvey, you are recognized.
Hey guys, Powers did not meet this week as we didn't have any legislation to go over and no one had any active ideas for future legislation, so I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now hear a report from the Student Life Committee. Chairwoman Malachi, you are recognized, ma'am.
Hi everyone, happy Wednesday. Student Life met Monday at 6. We basically just talked about wrapping up the term, what that looks like for our committee personally. Other than that, we have one piece of legislation. I'll be reading the first reading calendar tonight, and with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now hear a report from the Sustainability Committee. Chairman Hensley, you are recognized.
Hey y'all, so sustainability did not meet this week as we did not meet quorum, but we do have a few bills on the first reading calendar today, and with that, I yield to questions.
The chairman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you so much. We will now hear a report from the Freshman Council. Are there any representatives present? You ladies are recognized to give a report before the body.
Okay, Freshman Council's been working on a few things to close their term. The Sustainability Committee is having a cooking class on Thursday from 12 to 2, which is targeted towards freshmen, and they're doing a Ronald McDonald pop drive to collect the pop tabs after spring break. And then Community Outreach is doing a canned food drive the week after spring break, and all of it will be donating to Harvest Hope. You can Venmo, there'll be a Venmo code to Venmo to then purchase cans Monday after spring break. And then we may or may not be doing a poverty simulation with Freshman Council and other freshmen, but we're trying to find funding for that.
Okay, hi everyone, my name's Emily. So I'm on health and safety, and for our committee, we're planning a tabling event the week after spring break. We're looking at the date of March 11th, but that's not fully confirmed yet. We'll be selling cup condoms, air tags, rape alarms, and a bunch of safety items for those on campus. We'll be funding this with the $2,000 that the USPD gave to us very friendly. It will also be themed, as we have decided to make it a Safety Depot themed, inspired by Home Depot. And then for the academic committee, they're just going over the Google Docs and reviewing answers from their hot drinks for hot take event.
Hey guys, I'm Jenna. I'm on the Student Life Committee. We had a little Celsius event a couple weeks ago, and we ran out of Celsius so fast, and so they told us that we could possibly do another one, and they just bring the entire, whole fridge, full of them, and so we may be doing that, but other than that, we have, 2 weeks left, so we're just wrapping up, and same with DEI. They're sending thank you notes to the people who came and spoke to us at the Hollings Library, but they're also just wrapping up.
Do you guys yield to questions?
We yield to questions.
The representatives yield to questions. Are there any questions for the representatives? Chairman Hensley?
It'll be starting the week after spring break, so it'll be that Monday through Friday, and there'll be a place to donate them in the LSC.
Any other questions, Senator Brash?
Okay, so it's in the works. We're not sure if it's going to happen or not, but the community outreach is going to do work with, this girl's mom works with this nonprofit that does, it's kind of a game, and you have a thing, and we were either going to do it and include other people, and the freshmen you could sign up, and it kind of just gives an eye into what poverty looks like, you go through the different steps, and then at the end it would have been paired with our Harvest for Help drive. If that kind of makes sense. It's kind of hard to explain.
Any other questions for the representatives? Seeing none, thank you so much. Let's give them a round of applause. Great job. We will now hear a report from the Constitutional Council. Chief Justice Buchmeyer, you are recognized.
Evening, everybody. It's always good to spend another Wednesday in y'all's company. With that, not much has changed, not much to report. As y'all continue to pass legislation, we'll be looking at those codes updated by the end of the semester to reflect all the changes from this session. And with that, I will yield to questions.
The Chief Justice yields to questions. Are there any questions for the Chief Justice? Seeing none, thank you so much. We will now hear a report from the Speaker of the Student Senate, Cameron Eubanks. Chief of Staff Courtney Tax, you are recognized.
Hi, everyone. Okay, I'm going to keep it short, simple, and to the point today. We do not have session next week. If you come, none of us will be here. I hope you guys are all going to have a great time next week. Yeah, we have nothing else to do. Thank you guys for working hard. Even though we know that this election cycle has come and gone, you guys have still really kept up on legislation and worked really hard on it. So I really, really appreciate that. And can't wait for next Senate session. Best one, last one. Last one, best one.
And point of information, the last session is March 13th, and it will be here.
Yes, it will be. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The Chief of Staff yields to questions. Are there any questions for the Chief of Staff? Seeing none, thank you so much. We are now in line for a report from the Student Body Treasurer. Treasurer Augsbuck Lama, you're recognized. Seeing none. We're now in line for a period from the Student Body Vice President. Seeing none. We are now in line for a period of report from the Student Body President. President Thompson, you are recognized, ma'am.
Hey y'all, hope you're having a good week so far. First of all, we're super excited to have USCPD with us tonight to recognize them for their hard work and collaboration this year. Coming into this role, as a lot of y'all know, I was super passionate about creating tangible change that was visible for students on campus, and so many of the initiatives we've done this year that have done this, the Uber discounts, the 24-hour library during finals, that would not have been possible without y'all, so thank you guys so much. This week has been super fun. We started transition, so Patton's been shadowing me, which has been just a great time. Just to kind of give y'all an update of some spending for the rest of the year. For the initiative fund, we'll be using that for our last Uber discount, a new SG tent, and some other programming items, and then student organization outreach items. And just for reference, that St. Patrick's Day Uber discount is going to be $10 off for students that Friday through Sunday until money runs out. Then for the IMF, we're using that for the SG Awards banquets and the t-shirts. And just FYI, t-shirts should be arriving by March 11th. Also keep an eye out for a survey in the GroupMe this week asking for opinions on the integration of a personal finance course in place of a current redundant general education requirement. So would love to have Senate feedback here since y'all represent all the different colleges and they really want to see diversity there. Some of this data will be going to the Faculty Senate and Provost Office as we look into Carolina core reform. We had a meeting with Parking Director today, so just some updates for y'all. From a technology side, ParkZen, which I've talked about before, which is the mobility app that will kind of show you where you can park on campus, where there's available parking, et cetera. That should soft launch April 1st, and that'll be soft launching the 80 lot between Greek Village and Strom Thurmond Fitness and Wellness Center. We're also looking at a program called Space B&B, which is kind of a nickname they've come up with for faculty who have reserved spots in Pimlico Garage to be able to rent out or lease their spots for $10 a day to students through the ParkZen app as well. They're also looking at the Park mobile platform, which would pay by day for meter spots rather than by hour. And you'd put in your email, and that would connect you with any permits you have and show you where all you have access to park on campus and what those occupancy levels are, and that will launch in the fall. Communication updates. March 1st through 10th, Parking is working with centralized communications to come up with a more central communication plan, kind of making sure we're aware of all the construction that's happening on campus that can minimize congestion there and disruption. Also wanting to better communicate to students baseball parking. Just some other changes. Paratransit will move to an all on-demand for mobility challenges system. They're also going to be opening medical spots on campus for those who are temporarily disabled. The 3-year timeline goal is that we'll be an all-technology campus, so all garages, meter spots, and surface lots will be part of a software program where you can see all availability. The red and green lights that y'all may have seen at the Charlotte or Columbia Airport that shows you what spaces are available, those are also the goal to be in garages, but we need a couple $100 million there, so we'll see. And then we'd also love to have a camera-based system that basically shows accessibility through license plates, so we don't have to manually do that. There is a chance, just to be very transparent, that fines and parking permit prices will be slightly changing for the next academic year, pending the formulation of the next few board meeting agendas, so I'll keep you guys updated if any of that is approved. Patton had a great idea today, too, so we're hoping to get a meeting with the Greek presidents that have houses in Greek Village to talk about parking concerns, because I think Greek Village has been a hot-button issue there. Again, please make sure that you have March 14th blocked off on your calendar for the Cockies or SG Awards, and don't forget to fill out the superlative form that was sent in the GroupMe. Cabinet and staff have been busy planning that event, as well as our senior band, and then working on transition guides and remaining purchasing requests. We had Board of Trustees last Friday. We had SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey come and talk to us about kind of his vision, the future of the SEC. Another thing from academic excellence and student experience, we added a Bachelor of Science in Applied Sports Psychology and Counseling. Then I just wanted to kind of briefly go over with y'all the draft master plan phases. So just to be aware, these are all in preliminary stages, but this first phase includes projects that are already underway or are in detailed planning, but they are financed. So the USC School of Medicine and Health Sciences campus on Bull Street, the USC Nursing Center constructed and hosted by Lexington Medical Center, the Thornwell Annex repurposing for student housing, the Brain Health Network renovations of 15 Medical Park, Booker T. Washington renovation, East Tower of the old law school where the Science and Tech building is now, Divine Street landscaping and pedestrian improvements. That's talking about that section between like Jones and Honors. Blossom Street beautification, including A.C. Moore Park, Sunwalk Building Street front improvements by Green Street, Horizon Building streetscape improvements at Main and Blossom, Wheat Street pedestrian bridge and Black Walkway improvements and beautification, and a War Memorial renovation. This next stage are projects that would need board approval. So these are just ideas. These are not official. They're not official. But these are priorities right now. Williams-Brice Stadium renovation, Thomas Cooper Library repurposing and renovation, McKissick Building repurposing and renovation, Central Dining, Student Union, and Main Street development decisions, Barnwell Building repurposing and renovation, New STEM Building with Innovation Center, Burns Building site repurposing and construction for student housing and other uses, McBride Building site repurposing and construction for student housing, Honors College dorm completion, Blatt Building renovation, and Bates and Bates West replacement. And then in an ideal world, the master plan will be approved in June, but that is very much subject to change. There is a separate work group going on in the board to discuss the student union, so I'll be keeping you guys updated on that. I've been having a lot of lunches individually with trustees about the new student union, Wi-Fi, housing, and the campus activity fee. My personal goal is to have the campus activity fee vote in March, but again, that is a hope. It is not a set plan, as I do not set the board agenda. But I am super excited to meet with Bryce Bible, the new CIO, the first Monday back after spring break. He starts this Friday, and we can finally get to work on the Wi-Fi improvements we received board support from in December. But with that, I hope everyone has a fun and safe spring break, and text me if you need anything. And with that, I'll yield to questions.
The student body president yields to questions. Senator Morgan.
Sure. Like I said, these are all in the planning process. There's no exact plan yet.
Senator Morgan.
Also, that is just an idea. It's something we're looking into, so it's something official yet, unfortunately, but it's something I'm super passionate about. So if I got my way, yes, it would be taught by somebody from the Darla Moore School Business.
Any other questions for the student body president? Seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank y'all.
We are now in line for special orders of the Senate. Are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read. Hearing no more special orders of the Senate, we are now in line for the motion period. Are there any motions on the floor? Chairwoman Ravi. Point of information motion, maybe? You're recognized to come to before the podium.
I did forget something in my report. If you are in the Health and Safety Committee and you are here today, I have something very important to discuss with you, so stay this entire session. I need to see you afterwards. I yield to questions.
It was a point of information. You don't have to yield to questions.
That's right. I mean, you can ask me questions, but...
Any other motions on the floor? Seeing no more motions, is there a motion to dispense with the motion period? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now in the call of the introduction of new legislation. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11568, introduced by the Rules Committee, a resolution to honor the University of South Carolina Police Department for their collaboration with student government and contribution to the student body.
Chairwoman Ravi, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hi guys, so this is a very important piece of legislation. Today we are honoring you guys, USCPD, for all the wonderful work that y'all have done with us and for us. You guys are the first ever outside of student government group to receive a departmental collaboration award, and we are so honored to have you guys here today. For y'all, just some fast facts, USCPD helped fund the Carolina Clemson game day Uber discount. They also helped fund the Uber discounts for Hoops Week. They're the reason our library was able to remain open for 24 hours during finals week. They provided protection for us. And they also co-sponsored the wonderful Pizza with Poppy event. So yes, that is why we are honoring you guys today. And again, we are so glad to have you guys here.
Do you yield to questions?
I do yield to questions.
The chairwoman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? And point of information, the Department Collaboration Award is the very first award that student government is giving out in this category, and so we are very, very excited for the recipient of that award to be the University of South Carolina Police Department. A glass award is coming with that. It is not in yet, but we are super excited, barring passage, that we present them with the resolution tonight. Any questions for the chairwoman? Senator Lapsley. Let's give a round of applause to the USCPD. All right, we're gonna have to give them another round of applause in a second, but great initiative, Senator Lapsley. Seeing no more questions, is there a motion to pass by acclamation? Is there a second? All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Is there a motion to suspend the rules to allow USCPD to come accept the resolution and take some pictures? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now in the suspension of the rules. You're good. Yes, so as you can see, we definitely have some extra special guests. I will let the chief, if you want to introduce us to the special guests before we present the resolution for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you all for the recognition, but also for the engagement with us. It takes both sides to be able to engage collaboratively and to make progress in service in these areas. And that is in large part due to you and our student body. We've got an amazing student body, and we're just very fortunate to have the constructive engagement that we do. But also, I am probably the luckiest guy in public safety to have a team like this. Not just our officers, the humans are amazing, but the canines they have with them. If I can just take just a few minutes of your time, and I really do apologize because I know it's late, it's a rough time of year, but we had a vision when we started the canine program, and it sort of came out because of complaints we got from student government. We were getting complaints that officers were not seen in the library and in the Russell House, and we were never around. Well, I knew for a fact the officers were there because we have patrol logs and everything else, but it wasn't registered. It wasn't being engaged. We also obviously have the issue and concern about guns on campus and making sure that we're keeping the community safe and as gun-free as absolutely possible. And then we have the other element of special events and bomb sweeps and those kinds of things. Well, Sergeant Jivapaw in large part helped us put together sort of this concept. If you've ever seen police dogs everywhere else, and I love watching you all interact, you're always sort of hesitant to pet them. And yeah, you should be. Most police dogs, they're sort of they have a job and they have to work, and that's the thing, right? Well, I had faith that these Labradors are smarter than we give them credit for, and they can know the difference between when it's time to work and when it's time to engage and get a little love. Well, they've proven me right and then some. And they've been able to do an amazing job of passing their qualifications. They are still absolutely effective at detecting guns and bombs, but they're also able to just also interact with our community. And that's in large part because we've got amazing canines, but also we've got amazing handlers that live with these dogs every day, every night. They are as much their pet and companion as they are their working partner. And so it's just amazing to see they have exceeded my wildest dreams in terms of being able to have the dogs do the job of protecting guns and bombs and keeping the community safe, while also being able to engage with our community. And so the interesting thing, going back to the original reason, that presence in the library and in the Russell House, because of these officers in particular and their canine partners, we've seen a significant increase in that recognition of officer presence in those communities. So I thank you all for the award. I thank our officers and our canines. And I'm introducing our fourth dog. So we started with 2. We grew to 3. Well, we just added a 4th. And so with that, Officer Cassandra, you want to introduce us to your partner?
Amos. He came from Alabama. He came from the global training program over there, same place that Poppy and Uber were trained at. And he did great over there. He had 6 weeks of training over there. He just got cut loose on the road 2 weeks ago. So he'll be seen around campus pretty frequently.
Passed all his certifications with flying colors as well, and so did Officer Cassandra. It's as much about her training as it is the dog. You fucker? This is Amos. So, thank you all so very much.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much for introducing to all of y'all's partners. But also, again, we wanted to thank all of your staff and all of your hardworking officers and the canines that assist. Like I said, we could not walk on this campus or even function as a campus without you guys. So that being said, I would love to read the end of the resolution to effectively honor you guys with the award. So be it resolved by the 115th Student Senate that all members of the 115th Student Senate and student government do hereby recognize, appreciate, and honor the University of South Carolina's Police Department for their collaboration with student government on its various initiatives this year. Furthermore, we recognize and celebrate all of the work that USCPD has done and continues to do to make our campus safe for every Gamecock. And that the University of South Carolina Police Department is awarded with the first ever Student Government Department Collaboration Award, an award created to recognize a university office or department's contribution to the student experience and their partnership with student government on key initiatives throughout the term. So congratulations, and we're so excited to present it to you.
Corporal Watson and Uber is a rock star as well. Uber is our gentle giant. He is the largest Labrador I've ever seen, but he is also the most gentle and kind. So if you get a chance, Corporal Watson and Uber are also an amazing part of our team. So,
do you mind taking a picture?
Please.
Awesome, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Of course. Y'all have a great night and finish strong. Believe me, I know from the reports we're seeing this is a rough time of year. Be resilient. Help your fellow students be resilient. You got this. You got this. I know that. So you need to know. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, guys. And with that, we will continue on the call of the introduction of new legislation. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11569, introduced by Senator Gruner and John, a recommendation to add detailed information about the immunization penalty to the Self-Service Carolina and Gamecock Gateway checklist.
Senator Gruder and John, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hey guys, so really quickly, by a raise of hands, how many of you guys have had an immunization hold or some sort of confusion about the immunization process at some point during university? A lot more than I was expecting. So don't feel bad, because surprisingly, you happen to be with a group of over 850 students every fall semester who happen to get an immunization hold. And for those of you who don't know, an immunization hold is a hold on your Self-Serve Carolina registration account where you are unable to register, change, drop, or even alter any of your class schedules until the hold is lifted.
Moving into college can be exciting as well as an overwhelming thing for many students, especially for freshmen who just entered college. They just have a lot on their plate. They have to find their housing, they have to find their roommates, and the list just goes on and on and on. And that is when a checklist becomes so useful. If you guys search up, likewise, University of South Carolina also provides a checklist. If you guys search up Gamecock Gateway checklist, you'll be able to see a list of things you have to complete. But the thing is, if you go on there, there is no mention of immunization hold. And where the problem arises is many students, they overlook the importance of submitting these immunization forms. And what they don't realize is that if you don't submit those forms on time, a hold will be placed on your account. And the other thing is, our institution does send emails to both our personal and our school email regarding all the things you have to complete, and they also provide an immunization, a link to it. But if you actually open up the link, it takes you to a website that mentions nothing about immunization hold.
So ultimately, this legislation is meant to bring more information regarding the information holds part to Self-Serve Carolina, as well as the physical and digital copies of the new student orientation like Gamecock Gateway. Overall, this legislation will help communicate the requirements surrounding the forms and expectations, and by implementing this, we will hopefully avoid more disruption to academic progress to the new incoming freshmen and transfer students at our university. And we yield to questions.
The senators yield to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Senator Kay.
We actually did. We visited the student health building the other day, and so we were able to talk to one of the women who was like at their desk, and so we had a little bit of conversation, a little bit about the feasibility, the websites, and understanding more about the email aspect of it. But that's kind of where we got a little bit more conversation, but we're hoping to build more upon that in future conversations.
Chairwoman Ravi. Go ahead. Any other questions for the senators? Senator Byer.
No, he's not. Like, if they call him South Carolina for showing up there, then they're not their position. Or a job, or.
Yes, it happened to me during my fall semester, and this happened at a point when I was trying to change a class right before like the deadline where you would get like the withdrawal failure, and I didn't even know it was there. So I feel like this happens to a lot of students as well, and that's why this is such a large issue, because you're not allowed to change or alter your class schedule until the hold is lifted and approved by the student health.
And so the other thing is that you have so many forms you have to fill in. And like if you are missing one of the forms, then you would definitely get assessed onto it. And many students, they think, I missed like before, they think, oh, it's a less priority thing. I can do it once I'm in college, but no, you have to do it. There is a deadline to it. Otherwise, you will not be able to register or drop that.
Any other questions for the senators? Seeing no more questions, let's give a round of applause for Senator John's first piece of legislation. This legislation is referred to the Health and Safety Committee. Continuing on the call, the introduction of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11570, introduced by Senator Sellers and Bean, a recommendation to offer scholarships specifically designed for transfer students in order to attract more transfer students to the University of South Carolina.
Senator Sellers and Bean, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hey y'all, so this is a recommendation to get a transfer scholarship implemented here at USC because, fun fact for you, we're actually the only SEC school that does not offer a scholarship for transfer students. And that's a little embarrassing because we want to make sure that we attract and retain transfer students because they bring so much diversity, they come from all kinds of different backgrounds, and so getting a scholarship would help USC become way more competitive with getting transfer students here. Anything you want to add?
Hi. What's really exciting is that we were working along with Bill Brown and other people who are part of the transfer department, and they are so excited about this. They're already in the process. They have this idea. This legislation idea, the recommendation, acts as a support system to this because they are going to the state legislators to get this enacted. So this is a huge sprinkle on it. It's fantastic, and it would be great.
We yield to questions.
The senators yield to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Chairwoman Ravi. Any other questions for the senators? Senator Brash.
It's just a recommendation to create one. That's a little further down the road.
Any other questions? Oh, sorry, go ahead. No, you're right.
Right now we are at 0.
That is true.
Any other questions for the senators? Senator Gruner.
Perhaps that's something to work out in the terms of the scholarship, but this is just to get that conversation going. But that would definitely be a great idea in the works when that happens.
Chairman Harvey.
How many? Oh, right.
Right, it would be ideally like a fund, and it would be to attract as many transfer students as possible. So hopefully we can be a little more competitive in the SEC and everywhere else, because every other college has a similar program to this.
In point of information, both Senator Sellers and Bean attended the Transfer Advisory Council Summit on Monday. And at that summit, part of their kind of end of year report, where all their subcommittees kind of give a report on all their findings, a part of it was a recommendation and a plan to go and try to establish the scholarship through using state aid. They're using state money, so that is something that they're hoping that our university and our university government team hopefully takes up in their lobbying efforts in the next couple years. Chairwoman Ravi.
I would advocate, I mean, we're just at ground zero here as far as right now we're just asking for some sort of scholarship to be created. But I would advocate for additional funding, not pooling from anything else, because we don't want to negatively affect anyone else at the benefit of someone else. So, but that would be something I would advocate for, is creating a separate fund.
And point of information, development in the past has not pulled money from other state awarded scholarships. So again, like I said, this is very early stages, but then in the past they have not pulled from or decreased the amount of other state scholarships. So, any other questions for the senators? Seeing none, thank you so much. This legislation is referred to the Academics Committee. Continuing on the call of the new legislation, the clerk will read.
SBL 11571, introduced by Chairman Hensley, a bill to specify the duties of Deputy Secretary of Sustainability.
Chairman Hensley, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
So this legislation is pretty straightforward. One of the missing parts, I think, of legislation that was passed last semester regarding encouraging green certification on a student government level was that there was no real execution clause. So what this would do was it would hand that responsibility to the Deputy Secretary of Sustainability on cabinet, and that person would be the one who goes through with the green certifications themselves and gets those done for all of our events. And with that, I have questions.
The chairman yields to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Senator Brash.
So green certification is a team that's a part of Sustainable Carolina. Sustainable Carolina is like the student leadership and service program done through the sustainability office here. And basically all that is that organization or a lot of our like offices or even like Greek houses will they'll have a meeting with someone from the certification team and they'll talk about just like ways that they can be more sustainable through their event, how their like house can be more sustainable, how the office can be more sustainable, and the green certification team, which is comprised completely of students, will like make various recommendations, and yeah, it's a very easy process.
Any other questions for the chairman, Senator Kay?
What do you mean?
Point of information, that's something like an amendment could be brought up in committee to specify that section. So I think the senator's just asking if you would be open to an amendment.
I'm also unsure of the language that you're talking about.
Point of information, we're not on that piece of legislation yet. No, you're good. This is SBL 11571. Any other questions for the senators, or excuse me, the chairman? All right, seeing none, thank you so much. The legislation is referred to the Judiciary Committee. Continuing on the call,
SBL 11572, introduced by Senators Byer and Wall, a recommendation to improve University 101 course curriculum.
Senator Byer and Wall, you're recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hi everyone. So essentially we're going to make this brief, but as we all know, U101 is such a key experience for first year students, but as freshmen we realized that there were some improvements that could be made to make this experience even better. So recently we both met with the offices of University 101 Director Dan Friedman, and we discussed some possible changes that could be implemented into course curriculum. So a brief background on how U101 works. Essentially, there's a skeletal curriculum, and each instructor has some liberty on what points they choose to emphasize or what activities they do within each topic of interest. We suggested adding a unit to the curriculum dealing with road safety, just because there have been a lot of car accidents or near accidents, especially with freshman students who may not come from urban areas or may not be used to just constantly crossing the street or being at busy intersections, and we believe that this would be a really beneficial unit. Additionally, we would like to add some extra emphasis on DEI aspects in University 101 curriculum, just because right now the curriculum does mention DEI, but some instructors choose not to cover it as deeply.
Lastly, we also put some recommendations in for resources to increase resume strength, such as guest speaker series or days where they were supposed to look at clubs, just to increase employability among students. And with that, we open our time to questions.
The senators yield to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Senator Ron Gavajula.
Yes, we spoke to the offices of University 101, the head director, and then we also corresponded with a couple current instructors to talk about what changes would actually be feasible within classroom settings. But as it gets implemented more deeply, we believe that the director will speak to more instructors and also different programs he can reach out to.
Any other questions for the senators? Senator Kay.
Yeah, we definitely can work on specificity. We talked with Senator Malachi, or Chairwoman Malachi about that, and it was our first piece of legislation, so a little spotty, but 100%.
Any other questions for the senators? Seeing none, let's give them a round of applause for their first piece of legislation. Seeing no more questions, the legislation is referred to the Academics Committee. Continuing on the call, the clerk will read. Senator Morgan. Granted. Senator Morgan. Granted. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11573, introduced by Senator Rangabajula, a recommendation to produce and facilitate access to purchasing recommendations during student organization finance requests.
Senator Rangavajula, you're recognized to speak on the legislation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I begin, I just want to assuage your fears that I might take forever with all these pieces of legislation. I'm a graduating senior, and these are the ongoing projects that I just want to put down on paper before I head out, just so that they might be picked up if they're not completed within this term or the end of the semester. So these are just a bunch of stuff that I hope that the future senates and student governments can pick up and continue along. So with that being said, moving on to this specific piece, I think 2 weeks ago or so, a week ago, we met with Matt Hines, who is actually the Student Affairs Director of Administration, and we were working to include more information about green certification on the finance request form, which is a bill that was previously passed with Senator LaPinta and I. And this is something that's sort of adding on to that, trying to include more sustainable information within that purchasing process by including sort of a wish list of approved items that we think are both economically good and environmentally good. So these are items that we'll screen and provide for organizations for their convenience, so that if they have a commonly requested item, they can look at this wish list of sorts and say, these have been approved, this is easy to buy, this is cheap, might as well go with it. So ease of access for student organizations and peace of mind from an environmental and economic standpoint. So this is an idea that they're on board with, and this is something that we're trying to do now, if not now, hopefully at some point in the future. So with that, I yield to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. The legislation is referred to the Finance Committee. Contending on the call,
SBL 11574, introduced by Senator Rangabajula, a recommendation to promote vegetarian and vegan options in Aramark catering packages.
Senator, you're once again recognized.
Yeah, so kind of as said, trying to improve vegetarian and vegan options in Aramark catering packages. Believe it or not, there still exist packages without any vegetarian or vegan options, which is kind of crazy. You just show up and there's nothing to eat for you, but everyone else is eating. Not speaking from personal experience, if I sound a little salty. But even for while majority do have vegetarian options, they do not have a vegetarian or vegan protein replacement that would make it a complete meal. Obviously, protein is an important part of a whole diet, and to not have that is kind of doing an injustice as a food providing organization. And on top of that, so essentially we're trying to introduce vegetarian or vegan protein options, or options in general where they don't exist, and where protein options may not be able to be provided, potentially incentivizing their selection by decreasing price to reflect the lack of protein option in these packages. So just trying to improve accessibility to vegetarian and vegan options from organizational perspective and an individual perspective. With that, I yield to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Senator LaPinta. Granted. Senator LaPinta. Granted. Senator Tanner. Granted. Senator Tanner. Granted. Chairman Hensley.
I was not, no. Could you elaborate? Can I ask?
Chairman Hensley.
Okay.
And point of information, she met with Farron Alston, who's the marketing director for Aramark, but she also met with the on-campus dietitian. So I would make sure that you circle back with her, and I think this could be a good double project.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be open to that. Yeah.
Any other questions for the senator? Senator Brash. Are you appointing a proxy at all? Granted. Any other questions for the senator? Seeing no more questions, the legislation is referred to the Health and Safety Committee. Continuing on the calendar, the clerk will read.
SBL 11575, introduced by Senator Rangabajula, a recommendation to create concentration tracks within the biochemistry and molecular biology major.
Senator, you're once again recognized.
So as the title suggests, trying to introduce these concentration tracks. As a biochemistry major myself, I personally prefer biology, and I think a fair majority of the major, with which I do have classes and I've talked to this about, have that same feeling, and they feel that there's an there's an overwhelming abundance of chemistry courses and physics courses within the major, which leads to a lot of dissatisfaction within the population. And these courses are not required for what the university itself says that the major is meant for, to prepare students for medical school and pre-health majors or pre-health tracks. And because of that, we see a lot of dropouts and poor retention rates. I can count on the number of hands, on one hand, the number of people that stayed in the major for my freshman year. So because of that, I've been working with curriculum development on campus, as well as the biochemistry department, to try to integrate concentration tracks similar to what the neuroscience major has, to try to gear towards more specifically what students' interests might be, whether that be chemistry or biology / medicine side of things. So implementing that would definitely make it more attractive and something that students are more willing to stay with during their time at Carolina. With that, I yield to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. The legislation is referred once again to the Academics Committee. Contending on the call, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11576, introduced by Senator Rangabajula, a recommendation to partner with Greek life organizations to collect reusable decor and themed clothing for the Gamecock Community Shop.
You are once again recognized.
Yeah, so this is an initiative that President Thompson initially brought up last semester, and unfortunately there wasn't a lot of partnership viable with the community shop at that point. But as we pursued it through this current semester, we were able to make a breakthrough, and they're definitely open to making this happen. And they're looking to set up collection bins within the Greek village. A little bit of background: a lot of, as you probably are aware, Greek life does a lot of themed events, a lot of one-off events that they get a lot of decor for, go all out for, which is great experience for the students. Except a lot of this doesn't get reused the next year because you can't wear the same outfit twice in a row. So at the end, a lot of it gets thrown away or just unused. So having a collection center where all of this can be collected and potentially used by other organizations that didn't do the same team or didn't do similar things in previous iterations would be helpful. And there's definitely buy-in and interest from the Greek organizations. So I think this could be a good thing moving forward, where we can implement sustainability within the Greek life section of campus. So with that, I yield to questions.
Are there any questions for the senator, Senator Kay?
Yeah, so I left it purposely ambiguous in the sense that, again, I'm leaving, and I want to see this carried on by future terms of student government, and whatever they believe is the best way to carry out this partnership and implement it. For instance, there have been ideas to implement to integrate it within Dance Marathon, which unfortunately didn't happen this year, but whether or not that's something they want to pursue in the future is up to them. So these types of partnerships from student government, Carolina Community Shop, and then Greek life standpoint, this type of relationship is kind of up to future generations, and that's something that I personally didn't want to try and enforce on a specific sense, so I just left it open-ended for their interpretation.
Any other questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. The legislation is referred to the Student Life Committee. Contending on the call, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11577, introduced by Senator Rangabajula, a recommendation to maintain an online repertory of promotional material from student organizations.
Senator, you're once again recognized.
So this is essentially something that we piloted this year during the Student Organization Fair, where we collected promotional material from a lot of different organizations. And there's a two-pronged reason for this. One, to help accessibility of promotional materials from organizations on our campus, to help showcase that to students that may not be following their social media or may not be able to come to the same areas where they might put up flyers. So kind of improving the number of eyes on our organizations on campus that want to participate in this initiative. And then second, trying to reduce the number of flyers that might be put out. Obviously an environmental burden, because a lot of times, if you hand out a flyer, I mean, chances are you just throw it away or you just lose it or it's buried at the bottom of your backpack. So having this in mind, I think there's been a lot of interest from organizations for this first pilot, and I've been working with the Leadership and Student Service Center to put this up on social media as well as the Garnet Gate, and that should be coming up pretty soon. So moving forward, I think this could be a good initiative to help promote and continue in the future years. So I just wanted to legislate it so it's carried forward. With that, I yield to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. The legislation is referred once again to the Student Life Committee. Contending on the call, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11578, introduced by Senator Rangavajula, a recommendation to establish an annual Cancer Prevention Week on campus.
Senator, you're once again recognized.
Yeah, so this is something that we've been working on in collaboration with Student Health Center, as well as Colorectal Cancer Prevention Center, a whole bunch of organizations on campus that are interested in seeing this happen, as well as Relay for Life. This is something that we're trying to hold next month during April, and whether or not it'll happen as a pilot this year is kind of in the works still, but I think it's something that there's a lot of student interest in, a lot of organizational interest in. Not sure if you're aware, but we house like a lot of leading national departments on our organization that help lead and advise national cancer policies. So there's a lot of resources on our campus that currently benefit the country as a whole, but I think could really be beneficial when targeted to the student population, especially as we see higher rates of early onset cancer in early 20s adults. So pretty relevant topic and a lot of interest in it. Hopefully it works out this year. If not, I just think this is something that can be carried forward in the coming years. So with that, I yield to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions? Chairwoman Ravi.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you have any specific context you're talking about, but we are working with DHEC to have HPV vaccinations, to have potential mammogram screenings on Green Street. Health Center is definitely interested in setting up those type of things, as well as a whole host of other events. So it's hopefully going to be a big thing that we can integrate within the campus culture to make cancer prevention not an option, but a part of our lifestyles.
Senator Byard.
Yeah, absolutely. We are currently working with a lot of student health organizations as well as some service organizations to try and set up stuff for that. If you have any particular ones, I'd love to speak to you following the Senate session to see if we can work something out.
Any other questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. This legislation is referred once again to the Student Life Committee. Contending on the call, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11579, introduced by Senator Kaye, a recommendation to increase the campus activity fee.
Senator Kaye, you're recognized to speak on the legislation.
All right, I know we're all getting a little sleepy here, so I'm gonna wake the room up just a little bit. This bill is mostly just a physical manifestation of all of the finance-related work previously. It just recommends that there's a $13 increase per student per semester to the student activity fee. There is a whole lot of numbers and a whole lot of math in there. If you want to go take a look, please do. It took a whole lot of Control-C, Control-V on my part, so if y'all have any questions, I'll yield to them.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. The legislation is referred to the Finance Committee. Contending on the call, the clerk will now read. Hearing none, we are now on the call of the uncontested calendar. The clerk will now read.
SBL 11565, introduced by Senator Gruner, A recommendation to add the sexual assault and violence intervention and prevention hotline contact to the back of all future Carolina cards manufactured.
Senator Gruner, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hey guys, y'all heard me mention this a little bit last week, so just to kind of reiterate, in order to improve communications regarding sexual assault, the goal of this will be to add the SAVIP, or the Sexual Assault, Violence, Intervention, and Prevention hotline number to the back of the Carolina card. Both Carolina card and SAVIP have agreed to work in this in some measure, and so the term that we've decided to use is SAVIP 803-777-8248. Once this legislation is passed, Carolina card will work to produce multiple different prototypes to see what version might work the best in order to not disrupt the functionality of the Carolina card still. And to answer some questions asked last week that I kind of misheard, SAVIP is a sexual assault resource that is available on our campus, but one of the things that makes it different than others is not only is it a 24/7 reactionary hotline number, it also focuses on more than just legal action. It also focuses a lot on advocacy. So anything from student and academic assistance to classroom and housing changes to even counseling and safety plans in regards to any potential situations. And with that, I hold myself to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions, Chairman Hensley? Granted. Chairman Hensley? Granted. Chairman Harvey?
It is, and that's for two reasons. Number one, the back of the Carolina card is already kind of full as it is, and so if you try and edit too much text around, it might mess up with the functionality of the card. The reason I'm saying this is because this actually did happen last year when they tried to add something separate that wasn't SAVIP onto it, and it messed up like 800 cards. So that's why it's small, but the other reason it is kind of small and not meant to necessarily fully stand out is because even if you go on to SAVIP's website page, they try and be as discreet as possible, especially if somebody is trying to call in a moment when there's a lot of urgency. They want it to be discreet, and that's why we don't even go into fully what SAVIP is, like saying sexual assault, because we don't want there to be a connection in the event that there's something currently happening.
Any other questions, Senator Brash?
I'm so glad you asked that. In terms of replacements, I can't actually fully guarantee what that would be. You might still have to pay for a new card, but once the legislation is passed and they start creating prototypes, when they have found something that works both in function and is able to produce this, we'll actually be able to start a slow rollout. So students, if a student loses their card or decides to replace one before even the summer, once this gets moving, they'll be able to start seeing that SAVIP hotline number on the back. And then as long as things go well, every student, faculty, and staff Carolina card produced after that point would have the SAVIP number on the back.
Any other questions for the senator? Chairwoman Ravi? Are you motioning to pass by unanimous consent because it's already on the second reading calendar? There's been a motion to pass by unanimous consent. Is there any more questions for the senator before we move to that motion? Seeing none, is there a second to pass by unanimous consent? Second. All in favor say aye. All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The legislation is passed by unanimous consent and adopted.
Thank you guys so much.
Continuing on the call, the uncontested calendar, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11566, introduced by Senator Rangavajula, a recommendation to improve accessibility of HPV vaccination and PAP test on campus.
Senator Rangavajula, you're recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hey guys, so same as last week, we're trying to improve accessibility of these two potentially life-saving intervention points on our campus, which are especially relevant to our age group. So just to recap, HPV vaccine prevents against HPV, which can cause a lot of issues, specifically in some cases cancer, and it's highly prevalent on college campuses. About 90% of college students are expected to come in contact with it at some point, so better be protected than be sorry. And then pap smears are gynecological intervention that you can start getting at the age of 21, which is conveniently when a lot of students are on campus as a college student. So especially if you're from out of town and you're here for most of the time, you can't go back to your provider at home. Knowing about this service at the Student Health Center can be helpful in getting that schedule on time. So those are initiatives working with the Student Health Center, definite buy-in there. As I mentioned, HPV vaccines are potentially going to be part of that Cancer Prevention Week. So there's initiatives going on right now. There's plans for the next 5 years to kind of improve the numbers on campus for both of those uses. So having student government buy-in on that would be really helpful, so that the Student Health Center can help make the campus a better place. So with that, I yield to questions.
The senator yields to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Senator Brash.
They are free on the student health insurance. There is a cost associated if you're out of network, which is unfortunately most of everyone, but it is covered to some percentage. For the HPV vaccine, I think it's around like 75% covered, but that's something we're trying to work with to make it a feasible option for everyone on campus. So that's part of their kind of 5-year plan thing. So.
Any other questions for the senator? Senator, go ahead. Senator Spiller.
So their plan, essentially, what I'm trying to recommend through this bill is to hope that student government buys into and supports the health center plan. And to detail that a little bit more, it's kind of a two-pronged approach. The first segment is to try to assess the rate of vaccination currently on campus, because it's not something that we have to provide in our immunizations currently. So if we can figure out how many people are vaccinated and what groups might be least vaccinated, we can set up our second approach, which is to have more targeted vaccination drives or vaccination approaches. So that's the long-term goal. In the short term, potentially just I'm currently doing a PSA with WSC, so having that go out potentially annually just to remind people and new students that come in, having social media awareness on top of it, just publicizing a little bit better can be helpful to improving accessibility and awareness.
Any other questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now move to a vote on the legislation. Since this was on the uncontested calendar, this shall be a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Continuing on the call, the uncontested calendar, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11567, introduced by Senator Lynn, Lapsley, and Kay. The bill to specify the notice and enforcement of absence policy.
The senators, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
You think I would have known the title of this bill considering my name's on it. But anyways, this is a bill, like mentioned, to specify the notice and enforcement of the absence policy. What it effectively does is if someone exceeds the absence violations and then they come back into compliance, which is what we want, but then they exceed that policy or they break that policy again, it allows us to call them back up to the stand and go, hey, you broke it, we gave you some peace, you broke it again, we're going to call you back up to be potentially voted out. This technically is done via precedent and not actually through the rules. We thought it best to be in the rules to ensure there is no confusion whenever we are all gone and a new student body comes in and has no idea what they're doing. So if you have anything to add.
Only mainly that this piece of legislation is to just establish a balance and to maintain the integrity of the student senate. And other than that, we find it favorable.
The senators yield to questions. Are there any questions for the senators? Seeing none, thank you so much. We'll now move to a vote on the legislation. Since this was on the uncontested calendar, this shall be a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Continuing on the call, the uncontested calendar. The clerk will now read. Hearing none, that completes the call of the uncontested calendar. We're now on the call of the contested calendar. The clerk will now read. Hearing none, we are now in line for a period of open discussion. Does any senator wish to bring a matter of attention to the body? Seeing none, we are now in line for a period of announcements. Are there any announcements from the floor? Seeing none, as always, I do have an announcement. We will not be meeting next week because it is spring break, so please do not show up here at 5:30. I hope that you are doing something relaxful and fun. Please be safe over the next week and a half. That's super important, especially if you are traveling out of the country. Please be safe. There are a lot of travel advisories out right now. But when we get back, we will be meeting for the very last time on Wednesday, March 13th. Prepare for a longer session that day, as again, we have to vote on all these pieces of legislation that are going to committee this week. I also will be presenting a number of awards that day, so again, just prepare for a longer session. I would love if everyone could be there, because you may get an award, and it will be really awkward if you're not there to receive it. So if that's motivation for you to show up, I don't know what else is. But you should also just want to show up because it closes out the work that you guys have done over the past year. Like I said, we will go into sine die after that. So everything that happened on the 115th will be closed, and our work will live in the historical archives and go on to inspire future Senate terms and future speakers. At that session, I'm also excited to hand over the gavel to Speaker-elect Hamilton, as she will take the oath of office and participate in inauguration the following week. Following our last Senate session on the 14th, we will have the Cocky Awards. That is an awards banquet for all of student government. I will also be giving out an award. Every executive officer gives out one award to, and in my case, it is to a senator or a staff member that has really, or a cabinet member that has really shown initiative this year and has gone above and beyond their duties of office. So I'm very, very proud to announce it. It's also a really nice glass award as well, and each executive officer gives those out, so you definitely don't want to miss that. We'll also be giving out superlatives that you guys have voted on in the group meet. That's going to be really, really fun. And we'll also be giving out the senior bands as well that people also submitted things for. I would like to say, if you are still submitting things for senior bands, please do not take that as an opportunity to say something mean or to submit something rude and mean. We've had a couple of those, and you know, it is anonymous, but we know who you are. So you shouldn't be doing that, and that's not okay. And it's kind of obvious as well. So like, just please keep in mind that this is supposed to be an event where we celebrate our seniors and we celebrate the hard work that they've done. And so keep that in mind when you're writing a possible senior band. The senior band will take place at Polly's front porch. It is officially kind of like an official gathering of friends, but we're super excited to have that following the Cocky Awards. Cocky Awards will be happening in Capstone, and KJ Lemon, who works for under the president's branch, he will be sending out more information about the awards ceremony. It's going to be awesome. They've been planning it a lot. It's very different from last year's awards ceremony in the Leadership and Service Center. This is off campus, technically, and we're bringing it to a new location with a new revitalized type of thing. There will be hosts, and it will be fun and funny, and so it'll be a really great time. So I hope all of you come, because I do want to see all of your faces. Like I said, I'm super excited to end the term on a high note. I think you guys have done an amazing job this term, and I'm super excited to kind of wrap up all of our projects and hand the gavel over to Speaker-elect Hamilton. So, and one last thing that is not necessarily student government related, but I think is very uber important to the university, and a personal connection to mine. The University of South Carolina's Theater and Dance Department has been performing a show called A Raisin in the Sun. and it is premiering for 2 more nights until Friday. This show is significantly important to the history of our university, especially. It is kind of, well, it is one of the very first shows not only to feature an all African American cast, for the exception of a cameo part, but also to feature a story that deals a lot with the civil rights movement. And so it is a really, really big thing for our university. We've spent tons of money on the production of it, and it is probably one of the best shows I've ever seen here. And so I really encourage you all to go and get tickets. Students do get a discounted ticket. It is $15 as with a student discount, but it truly is an amazing piece of art, and it's being super well received from our community. So please, please go and see it. And with that, I will yield to questions. Are there any questions for myself? Senator Rangavajula? It is running currently, so there is a performance tonight at 8 p.m., and there's a performance tomorrow at 8 p.m. and Friday at 8 p.m. And it's in Long Street Theater, which is the theater with the big columns where everyone takes their graduation photos in front of. So across the fountain pond. Any other questions for me? Chairwoman Creed. I am not completely sure. I know that'd probably be a question for Emmy or KJ himself. I think you can ask it in the group me when it comes out. I'm not sure off the top of my head. I would imagine, maybe think not like super formal, but maybe like around Senate formal or a little bit less, that type of thing. But it'll pretty much be what you're wearing to the Cocky Awards since it's right afterwards. So, yeah. Any other questions, Senator Miller? Yeah. So a senior band is basically a celebration of the seniors, and each senior will get a white sash, and it's kind of like almost like a superlative in a nature. It's kind of like, most likely to, kind of like fun little like superlatives that you wear across your body on a white sash that's like painted on there. So yeah. That's the part that's at Polly's front porch afterwards, following the official SG Awards banquet. Polly's front porch, you don't have to buy a ticket to the awards banquet. That's like completely free with your membership to the organization. The senior band does have, I believe, a $10 ticket associated with it, but I'm not sure. So please don't take that as, you'll get a group me message about it from KJ. Yep. No, everyone comes, yep. Seniors will just get a special white sash to wear, and everyone else that's not a senior will not be wearing one. So, any other questions for us? So that was a good question, though. I didn't think about that. Thank you for asking. Any other questions? And just a reminder, I know we disseminated a lot of legislation. I'm going to send an email about all the pieces that are assigned to each committee because I know it's a lot. But just a reminder that you guys do have to vote on those before next Wednesday. In 2 Wednesdays. So I would encourage you guys, if you meet, for example, if you meet after Wednesday and you can't meet this week, I would encourage you to try to schedule a time Monday through Wednesday to find a time to meet to discuss the legislation. All right. And with that, seeing no further announcements, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Without objection so ordered, the Senate will now stand adjourned until Wednesday, March 13th, 2024, and have a fantastic spring break.